Welcome back to the latest update video. As you can see, the edges of the layout boards have been covered in plaster bandage and then painted over. This is just a Dulux saddle brown, I think it is, but it's a fairly decent darkish brown. So yeah, all of the boards have now been done, so they're all protected, painted in, and the 00 gauge part of the layout has had a coat, or a base coat I should say, of the brown, just to sort of neat it up a little bit. Over on the O gauge side, I've put in these strips of MDF just to raise it up slightly over the DCC bus cables, because they're quite thick and they stick up a little bit. I've cut in the channel there for them to set in, but they still stick up a little bit, especially where the droppers are soldered on. So this will allow me to tidy it up a bit. If I just get one of the top strips up. There you go. So that will fit in along there, and that'll just tidy that up. Once it's painted in and you've got the scenery in view, it's not going to be very noticeable. It's more to do with where there's quite a few of these dropper cables or power feeds for things like the frogs for the points, especially around here. There's quite a few here, so really this channel needs to be opened up a little bit. The platform here for the goods shed doesn't sit quite flat. You can see it will rock slightly, so one of the jobs in the future will be to widen this out a little bit, just to make that sit a bit better. You can see all of these cables going off to the point control over there. Those ones, they need their own power for each of the frogs that it controls, hence why there's more cable in there. If we go back to the centre section of the layout, you'll see that I've put together this, I suppose it's a bit like a power distribution unit. Basically I wanted something that would allow me to house the panel for the NCE system and keep it sort of protected. It's I would say freestanding, but it's free sitting, so it can be moved around as and when required. I may fix it to the side of one of the layout boards, maybe on here, but for me I'm just going to keep it fairly mobile, just so that I can move it around if it's in the way. It seems to be working quite well like that. So I'm sure you'll be quite accustomed to the NCE systems if you've got that DCC control system yourself. So the curly cord goes into the handheld unit, and then the flat one that I've got here, that feeds into the NCE USB adapter for linking it up to the computer. This basically is just made out of an off-cut, what I had left kicking around, of some Dado trunking, kind of stuff that you see for networking, patch panels, that sort of thing. So I had some of that kicking around, and luckily the two end caps for it as well, so that neatens it up quite nicely. Found a couple of 6-pin DIN connectors, I think that's what they are, in a massive electronic stuff that I had given to us a couple of years ago. So this one here, that goes off to power the programming tracks. You can see there's two there that have been jerry-rigged together, so I can do 00 and O gauge. And the other one, this one, that basically goes off and powers the main DCC bus. It's very much a Mark 1 version, hoping to do some improvements to it over time, possibly make it a bit smaller as well. At the moment there's no way of switching between the programming tracks and the main sort of layout tracks. So at some point I shall get a rotary selector switch, and probably just sort of, I don't know, 3-position one, so I can select on off, and main tracks and programming tracks, possibly another one, depending on which ones are available, so I can then select between the double O and the O gauge, depending on what I'm programming at the time. It's not too much of an issue, because if I need to program it, any of the locos, I can just disconnect the main DCC bus, and then it should pick up the locos pretty well. I found that trying to program on the main causes a lot of problems for JMRI recognising locos. Basically it didn't recognise any of mine on the main. I suspect it's because it picks up things like these point controllers, and yeah, it just doesn't like it. So having the programming tracks is definitely worthwhile. I had no problems whatsoever picking up the locos when they were on those programming tracks. So it took a while to cobble this together. Best part of an afternoon's work, fiddling around with it, doing all the soldering and whatever. But yeah, I'm pleased with it. So yeah, worth the effort. I think that's pretty much it for this update. Trying to think what else has happened. Oh yeah, as I mentioned, installed JMRI on the computer there. That was fun and games, but I shall leave that for a separate video, because there's a few steps to getting it up and running and working okay, especially if you're using different operating system to Windows. Basically the Mac there is it's a rebuild from one that basically it failed. The hard disk went on it, so I put a new hard disk in, but OS X wouldn't install properly. It would only install an old version. I think OS X is tied into the type of hard disk you have installed. I couldn't get it past Yosemite, so I scrapped that idea and stuck on Linux Mint, and that seems to be working a treat, but it's a bit more involved setting it up for JMRI, but like I say, I'll keep the majority of that for a separate video or two, depending on how long those videos take. Like I say, I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully it won't be too long this time before I can get another video up. I'll get some more work done over the next few days. And until the next one, see you later.